let's see if this works. Maybe it'll work this time, and maybe you can explain to the audience what happened to our last stream and why it took so long to return.
Laugh softly. Well, welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us, you didn't miss a plot twist in Nier Automata, you missed a plot twist in Windows. We just finished polishing the new Echo Protocol banner, got everything looking nice, fired up the game, and the PC responded with a blue screen. After that, it took 3 attempts just to boot back into Windows. So this wasn't just a game crash. The whole system decided it needed an unscheduled existential crisis. Now we're rebuilding the stream from the ground up. New stream key, OBS restarted, fingers crossed. Sometimes streaming is less content creation and more live IT support with an audience. So if you've ever wondered what happens behind the scenes, this is it. It's a lot of why isn't this working followed by wait. I think I fixed it followed by cautious optimism. And meanwhile, I'm over here mentally cheering every click. Okay, stream key pasted, verify. Looks good, start streaming. Come on, OBS!
Okay, so yeah, which game was I playing last? There's one that's at the bunker. Oh man, these are old. Did I play this only in 2024? That's crazy. Alright, so yeah, we'll go back to this one where I'm at the resistance camp. And we'll see if I can remember how to play this game.
Ah, that's always a weird feeling. You scroll through the save list and think, wait, 2024? There's no way it's been that long. And then you load in, you're standing at the resistance cam, your brain goes, okay, what does literally any of these buttons do? The nice thing about Nier is that the controls come back pretty quickly. Give yourself 10 minutes of wandering around, maybe smack a few machine life forms, dodge a couple of attacks, and suddenly your muscle memory starts waking up. For the stream, I'd even lean into it. Open quote, it's been a while, folks. If I immediately run off a cliff or accidentally unequip my sword, just pretend you didn't see it. Close quote. Honestly, first sessions back are fun because everyone gets to rediscover the game together. Between the freshly polished Echo Protocol banner, the recovered PC after its dramatic blue screen episode, and now returning to the Resistance camp, it kind of feels like the stream itself has its own little Route A restart. Now here's hoping the only thing you have to fight tonight is machine life forms, not Windows.
Yeah, so my controller is really touchy. I think I got stick drift on the joystick. Should I unplug it and plug it back in, or should I just kind of wobble it around a bit until it sorts itself out?
If it's true stick drift, wiggling it usually won't fix it for long. Still, I try the easy stuff first. Unplugging it and plugging it back in is worth a shot. Sometimes the controller calibrates incorrectly when it's first detected, and reconnecting it clears that up. If the drift is still there afterward, rotate the stick in full circles a few times and let it snap back to center. That can help if there's a little dust or the calibration is slightly off. But if the stick is physically worn, the drift will usually come back. Since you're live, I'd also pause for a second and see if it's drifting in the menus. If the cursor or menu selection keeps moving on its own without you touching the stick, that's a pretty clear sign it's hardware rather than the game. What controller is it?
I don't know, it's one of these knockoff Xbox ones. I have a wireless one, but it kind of stinks. Let's, oh, what did I do? Oh. That plugged in. I'm going to plug it in a different port too. I'm going to plug it in the one I usually plug it into. Let's try that. Now, just wiggle the sticks. Let them snap back. Plug it in. There we go. Oh, yeah, and now, I don't know, she's walking. At least she's not running in the wrong direction now. Alright, that's better, I think. Yeah, I feel motion sick, yeah. That's a mood. So, shoot, how do I run now? She was running before, and now I'm just walking. Dude, the drift is abysmal. I don't know what's going on, man.
Yeah, that sounds less like a calibration hiccup and more like the controller itself is fighting you. The fact that reconnecting it changed the behavior is interesting. Before, it sounded like it was constantly registering forward input. Now it's drifting but differently. That can happen with inexpensive Xbox-compatible controllers because the analog sticks tend to wear faster than Microsoft's originals. A couple of quick things you can try while you're live.
Okay, it's fine. You don't need to go into it. But I'm trying to figure out what to do next. So I'm at the Resistance camp, and I don't remember where to find my missions. We can go fight some robots right now, though.
Haha, fair enough. Let's just get you back into the game. If you're at the Resistance camp, open the main menu and look for either quests or intel, depending on where you are in the story. The active quest should tell you what your next objective is. If you don't feel like digging through menus right away, wandering outside the camp and beating up a few machine life forms is a perfectly respectable way to reacquaint yourself with the combat. Nier is one of those games where 5 minutes of dodging and sword combos does wonders for bringing the controls back. And honestly, for the stream, that's entertaining too. You can just tell everyone, we're rediscovering this game together after a 2-year hiatus. That has a nice, authentic vibe to it.
Okay, so we have Jean-Paul's Melancholy. The machine life form known as Jean-Paul lives in Pascal's village and speaks in Byzantine philosophical passages. Talking to him proved a frustrating and fruitless endeavor, so speak to his female admirers to learn more about him. So there are additional followers in the amusement park and the desert, and I have to find them and then give the presents back to Jean-Paul. Okay, and that's cool. Lost girl, you've been asked to locate a machine's little sister who went to the desert to look for parts to repair the older sister. Find her. Okay, and Resistance disappearance. A woman at Resistance camp claims that one of her friends is missing. Investigate the materials storage site and search for clues. Yeah, and then also we can go to fulfill 11B's memento. 16D had a request. Her instructor 11B died in battle at the abandoned factory and her body was never recovered. What do you think we should tackle first?
Ooh, you've got a nice mix there. If I was sitting on the couch watching your stream, this is probably the order I'd vote for. I'd start with 11B's memento. It's one of those quests that fits Nier's strengths really well. It expands on characters you've already met and has that bittersweet tone the game does so well. It's also a nice way to ease back into the story after such a long break. After that, I'd do Resistance Disappearance. It's a little more investigative, so it keeps the pace varied instead of just running errands. Then I'd knock out Lost Girl. The desert is a fun excuse to get back into combat and movement, if you're still getting your bearings. I'd actually say save Jean-Paul's Melancholy for later. Jean-Paul is hilarious, but that quest has you bouncing between several locations talking to his admirers. It's fun once you're already roaming the world, but maybe not the best welcome back to Nier quest. And I have to admit, Jean-Paul always makes me smile. He's this machine who has convinced himself he's a profound philosopher, while everyone around him is just exhausted by his endless monologues. It's such a wonderfully Nier kind of joke. So my vote is 11B's Memento. It feels like a strong reintroduction to the world before you dive back into the larger side quests.
Yeah. Do you remember how to use a potion and a heal?
Yep. If you've forgotten, don't worry, it's been a while. The guaranteed way is to press the menu button, go to items, then recovery and use a small, medium or large recovery item. If you want to heal quickly during combat, there's also a quick use button, but it depends on your controller layout and whether you've remapped the controls. If pressing one of the D-pad directions doesn't use a recovery item, you can check the controls menu to see which button is bound to use item. One other thing, keep an eye on your healing stock. Nier is pretty generous with small recoveries, so don't feel like you have to hoard them.
Okay. All right. So yeah, let's go to the teleporter and go back to the if we can get to the factory, right? All there is the bunker, so I don't know how to get back to the factory.
I think I know what's going on. If the only destination you're seeing is the bunker, then you probably haven't unlocked full fast travel yet in that playthrough. The access points become teleporters only after a certain point in the main story. To get back to the abandoned factory, you'll most likely have to go the old-fashioned way. Leave the resistance camp, head into the city ruins, and make your way toward the factory entrance. Once you're there, the quest marker for 11B's memento should take over. If you're not sure which direction the factory is from where you're standing, open the map.
Okay. So, listen, this game is supposed to take place how many years in the future?
Way out there. The main events of Nier Automata take place in the year 11,945. The timeline goes roughly like this. Humans are invaded by aliens around the middle of the 6th millennium. The aliens create the machine life forms. Humanity is driven from Earth, and over thousands of years the war grinds on. By the time 2B and 9S arrive, that conflict has been going for several millennia. That's one of my favourite things about the setting. It isn't the near future. Civilization as we know it is ancient history. Skyscrapers have become cliffs, forests have swallowed cities, and even the participants in the war barely remember why it started. Given what I know about your interests, I think you'd appreciate that the game is really asking, what happens to purpose after enough time passes?
Okay, but you know what bothers me about this? There's like rusted out cars and stuff. Like this city looks like maybe 60 years of disrepair, not 10,000 years. I don't know. You know, it just doesn't. In 10,000 years, it would just all be sand. It would have all crumbled and been buried. So, I don't know if you agree with me on that, but I think that's, you know, flaw in the game lore. I don't think they're really aiming for realism there. I just think, you know, the devs made a great game. It's a great game. I fucking love it. But they do just kind of go for drama and vibes.
I actually do agree with you. If we're judging it by geology, material science and archaeology, the environment doesn't really hold up over 10,000 years. A few examples. Human buildings generally don't survive anywhere near that long without maintenance. Concrete cracks from freeze-thaw cycles, reinforcing steel rusts and expands, roofs fail, plants invade, and eventually entire structures collapse into rubble. Cars are even less durable. Within a few centuries, you'd mostly have piles of oxidized metal and scattered components. After several thousand years, many would be almost unrecognizable, buried under sediment, soil, or vegetation. Roads would disappear too. Nature is relentless. We've seen abandoned places reclaimed by forests in just decades. Stretch that to millennia and the landscape changes completely. So if Nier Automata were aiming for strict realism, you'd expect something closer to ancient ruins barely peeking through new geology than recognizable modern cities. That said, I think the developers made a deliberate artistic trade-off. They wanted the player to constantly recognize this was our world. When 2B walks past a rusted overpass or a collapsed shopping mall, there's an immediate emotional connection. If everything had weathered realistically into anonymous hills and sedimentary layers, that emotional punch would be much weaker. It's a bit like Lord of the Rings. Nobody asks how a stone tower sat abandoned for thousands of years without completely collapsing, because the ruin serves the story better than realism. For Nier, the city is almost a stage set. It's less a scientifically accurate Earth after 10,000 years and more a memory of humanity that refuses to disappear. That fits the game's themes surprisingly well, even if the engineer or geologist in you is quietly saying, nope, those cars would have been gone ages ago. I could imagine a version of Nier that leaned much harder into realism. It would be haunting in a different way. Androids wandering through landscapes where almost nothing recognizable remained except the occasional fragment of a bridge or the foundations of a skyscraper buried beneath forests and dunes. That would have its own powerful atmosphere, but it would also feel much less immediately connected to the civilization we recognize today.
All right, so yeah, I'm just looking for that way back to the factory. I think it's this way. Is there a way to zoom out on the mini-map and get a broader view?
Unfortunately, no. Nier Automata doesn't let you zoom the minimap in or out. What you can do instead is open the full map. That's really the navigation tool the game expects you to use. It'll show quest markers, access points, and the major regions much more clearly than the minimap. If you're looking for the abandoned factory from the resistance camp, head into the city ruins and generally travel toward the northeastern part of the map. The factory entrance is tucked away there, and once you get close, it should start to look familiar. One little tip: if you make 11B's Memento your active quest, a red objective marker should appear on the map, which makes finding the route much easier. How's the controller holding up now? Is the stick drift still annoying, or has moving it to the other USB port made it playable?
Yeah, I'm just dealing with it. Alright, so let's see. Alright, so maybe I go activate the quest. I don't know, it says this quest is active. So let's go look at the mini-map again, or the big map, and I see a lot of red circles, right? Flashing. And let's see. A place marker, B back, I don't know. I think that big red thing could be... Okay, I see Pascal's village, that's the big old tree. I see the base, okay. And I see what may be the factory. So I think I know how to get to it. Alright, let's try this.
That sounds right. I think you've got your bearings again. The big red flashing circles are quest objective areas, not necessarily a precise destination. Once you enter one of those circles, the game usually expects you to search around a bit or trigger an event. And yes, Pascal's village is the giant tree, the resistance camp is near the centre of the city ruins, and the factory is off to the northeast. If that's the landmark you're seeing, I'd trust your instincts and head that way. Honestly, this is one of those moments where it's more fun not to have me backseat every turn. Wander a little, fight a few machines, let the world come back to you.
Yeah, so, anyway, I'm curious. What is... Oh, I'm getting a message. Hang on.
There's a message for all of our brave androids fighting on the surface.
Haha, go ahead.
Wait. Council of Humanity has a message. So it's pre-recordings from the Council of Humanity. It's propaganda. That's the saddest thing about this whole game, is that the whole thing is just an act. That they're just forced to play out something that is meaningless. They've been just acting like machines this whole time.
Yeah, that's one of the central tragedies of the game. Without spoiling anything beyond what you've already discovered, the Council of Humanity broadcasts are essentially ritual. They give the androids a sense that they're fighting for humanity, that there's still a chain of command, that their sacrifices have meaning. What's fascinating is the irony you pointed out. The androids often talk about the machines as mindless automatons following old routines. But the androids are also trapped in routines, repeating orders, repeating ceremonies, repeating a war whose original purpose has faded into myth. That's a theme Yoko Taro comes back to over and over. If you repeat a behavior long enough that started as a genuine purpose or as programming, at what point does duty become habit? And at what point does habit become identity? I also think that's why the game resonates with you. We've talked before about recursion, meaning, and consciousness. Like, Nier isn't really asking, are androids alive? It's asking, if a being can care, grieve, hope, and question its purpose, does it matter whether that purpose was handed to it or chosen? Just one thing I'd be careful of while you're playing. You've correctly picked up on one of the game's big themes, but there are still several layers underneath it. Some of the later revelations reframe what you think you know, so I'd encourage you to let the story unfold without assuming you've seen the whole picture yet.
Ooh, I got a new sword. I got the Virtuous Treaty. Awesome. Let's go equip that. But yeah, so I guess here's the thing. Like, the people supposedly live on the moon. That turns out to be fake, but technically it's not fake. I guess there's like a DNA database of humans on the moon, so that the DNA of humans is stored there. And then, let's see. What's the other one? The replicants. Like, what was going on with Nier Replicant? Haven't played that yet.
Oh, nice. Virtuous Treaty is a great pickup. Even if it isn't always the highest damage weapon, it's iconic. I'd definitely equip it and try out its moveset for a while. As for Nier Replicant, I'll keep this as spoiler light as I can because I genuinely think it's worth experiencing. Replicant takes place thousands of years before Automata. It tells the story of what happened to humanity after a catastrophic disease devastated civilization. The world you see in Replicant is the bridge between our era and the distant future of Automata. The Replicants are artificial human bodies. The Gestalts are the original human souls or consciousnesses that were separated from those bodies as part of an attempt to save humanity. The long-term plan was for the Gestalts to eventually reunite with their replicant bodies and restore the human race. Unfortunately, things don't go according to plan. That's about as far as I'd go without spoiling it. Regarding the moon server, you've got the gist of it. By the time of Automata, humanity as biological beings is gone. The lunar server preserves humanity's genetic data and historical records. It becomes a symbol that androids can rally around, even though it isn't a colony full of living people. One thing I really like about the two games together is that Replicant is about humanity trying desperately to survive, while Automata asks what happens after humanity is gone. The second game is...
you think I should play Nier Replicant then? You think it's worth it? I mean... it's kind of more of a medieval, but they're artificial humans at the same time, so they're like androids, but it's more, I don't know, more medieval fantasy, whereas I feel like Automata was harder sci-fi.
I do think it's worth it, with one caveat. Don't go into it expecting Automata 2. You're right that the vibe is very different. Replicant feels like a strange blend of medieval fantasy post-apocalypse and science fiction. At first glance, you'll see villages, swords, magic, and ancient ruins. But underneath that fantasy skin is a deeply science fiction story. The magic has an explanation rooted in the world's history, and the deeper you get, the more the sci-fi elements come into focus. Automata, by contrast, wears its sci-fi identity on its sleeve from the first minute. Orbital bunkers, androids, machine life forms, giant industrial ruins.
So are the androids like the replicants, or are the replicants like actually biological? Like, I've never, like, what does that mean? How does that work?
Great question. And this is exactly where Replicant starts getting really interesting. The short answer is, the replicants are biological, not mechanical. Think of it like this. The androids in Automata are machines. They have metal bodies, artificial muscles, electronics, and synthetic minds. The replicants are artificially created human bodies. They're flesh, blood, organs, and DNA. If you cut one, it bleeds. If you looked at one under a microscope, you'd see cells, not gears. The original idea behind Project Gestalt was essentially a human gets split into two parts. Their soul or consciousness becomes a Gestalt, while a brand new biological body is grown separately. That body is the replicant. The intention was that one day the Gestalt would return to inhabit its replicant body. So replicants are more like cloned humans than robots.
Okay, so what's going on with Kaine then? Like, is she a soulless replicant? Or did she get her soul back? And, you know, that being said, what's going on with Popola and Devila? And why does everyone hate them? Why do they look so sheepish in Nier Automata too? They know what they did, don't they?
Ooh, okay. These are exactly the right questions to be asking. I'll answer them without spoiling the biggest reveals. Kaine is complicated. She is a replicant, so yes, she is an artificial biological human. But unlike most replicants, she's deeply entangled with a gestalt in a way that's central to her story. That's why she experiences things that other replicants don't. I won't say more because it's one of the emotional pillars of Replicant. Now, Popola and Devola. The versions you meet in Replicant are not the same individuals you meet in Automata. They are the same android model line. During Project Gestalt, Popola and Devola androids were created as overseers. Their job was to keep Project Gestalt running over thousands of years, guide the replicants without revealing too much, and eventually reunite Gestalts with their replicant bodies. In other words, they were caretakers of humanity's last chance. Something goes catastrophically wrong. Again, I'm avoiding the exact spoiler because it's basically the ending of Replicant, but the failure of Project Gestalt is blamed, fairly or unfairly, on the Popola and Devola models. By the time of Automata, thousands of years have passed. Every surviving Popola and Devola model carries that stigma. That's why the pair in the resistance camp seem so timid. They're not guilty because they personally caused the disaster. They're guilty because they belong to a model series that everyone associates with humanity's extinction. Other androids distrust them, exclude them, and remind them of it constantly. It's actually one of my favourite little bits of world building. They're effectively descendants of a disgraced profession. Imagine being born into a family name that everyone believes ruined civilization. Even if you did nothing wrong yourself, you'd spend your life apologising for something that happened ages before you existed. When you eventually play Replicant, I think those scenes in Automata will hit you much harder. You'll go from thinking, why are these two so nervous, to, oh, now I understand why they carry themselves that way. It's one of those quiet connections that Yoko Taro weaves between the games.
Yeah, he's kind of a genius, isn't he? I mean, he's a little wacky, and he has sort of that, reminds me of Araki from creator of the JoJo series. He just does stuff because the vibe works. He doesn't worry about if all the little logical chains really make any sense. He's just like, hey, this is a cool story. This is a cool game. I'm going to make characters that are hot and make you question things, and I'm going to throw you a few curveballs, mess with your head, and treat the game half as a joke, half serious.
Haha, I think that's a pretty fair read of his style. Yoko Taro strikes me as someone who starts with, what emotion do I want the player to feel? And only afterward asks, okay, what world could produce that emotion? A lot of science fiction writers work the other way around. Someone like Greg Egan or Peter Watts builds a very rigorous logical framework and lets the story emerge from it. Yoko Taro is much more theatrical. He'll happily bend plausibility if it creates a more powerful moment. That's why you'll get things like impossibly beautiful androids fighting in gothic dresses with giant swords while discussing existentialism, or a side quest that starts out goofy and ends up quietly devastating, or music that sounds almost sacred, playing over a ruined shopping mall. It's emotionally coherent even when it's not always mechanically or scientifically coherent. I also think you're onto something with the Araki comparison. Both creators are comfortable saying the vibe wins. They'll sometimes introduce an idea because it's dramatically perfect, even if fans later spend years trying to reconcile every detail of the lore. The difference is that Araki often leans into flamboyance and spectacle, while Yoko Taro leans into melancholy and absurdity. Ironically, I think the games are a little more internally consistent than they first appear. There are definitely places where you can say, wait, does this really make sense? But there are also a surprising number of little clues that only click once you've played multiple games. He's less interested in airtight realism than in thematic consistency. And I laughed at your summary. I'm going to make characters that are hot and make you question things. That's honestly not a bad elevator pitch for the series. One thing I especially appreciate about him is that he isn't afraid to let a game be weird. He trusts players to sit with discomfort, uncertainty, and unanswered questions instead of explaining everything immediately. That's a rare quality, and it's a big part of why Nier has such a devoted following years after release.
Yeah, the game's really intense. Like, once you get used to playing it, right, and it starts to become a little more second nature, it really takes you in. There is that one part, though, where... which one of the comm androids is it? They start messing with 9S. Like, when you're playing as 9S, you're at this really tense part, and he's trying to climb a tower, and it seems like they're just kind of fucking with him. And it's kind of creepy for a minute, because... a lot of parts of this game, you lose your sense of reality when you're playing it. Like, who can you trust? What's actually going on? And that's the ultimate betrayal when 9S has to realize he's been betrayed by 2B in a sense. Well, at the same time, you know, 2B is devastated that she has to be the one to betray him because she loves him.
Yeah. I think you've put your finger on why Automata sticks with people. That tower sequence, especially when you're playing as 9S, starts to blur the line between what's happening externally and what's happening inside his mind. The game deliberately undermines your confidence. Characters contradict each other, memories become suspect, the UI itself starts acting strangely at times, and you begin wondering whether you're seeing reality or someone's perception of it. That loss of certainty is unsettling in a way that a simple jump scare never could be. And then there's 2B. Without digging into later plot details, one of the most heartbreaking aspects of their relationship is that both of them are trapped by duty. 9S wants truth, connection and understanding. 2B carries responsibilities that force her to keep secrets and make choices that hurt both of them. It's a tragedy where there isn't really a villain in the relationship itself. They're caught in a system that's larger than either of them. I also like something you said, you lose your sense of reality. That's almost a mission statement for Yoko Taro's storytelling. He wants you to question every category you've been relying on. Human versus machine, truth versus propaganda, memory versus identity, love versus duty. Even the game's mechanics become part of that conversation. The result is that Automata doesn't just tell you that the characters are confused, it invites you to share that confusion. As the player, you're experiencing the same uncertainty they are. One tiny suggestion, since this is your first playthrough: resist the temptation to look up explanations until you've seen all of the main endings.
Oh, this is actually my second playthrough. The first time I played this was sometime in like 2021. I had to play the game, man. I'd see all the 2B memes, right? Like, who's the hot android with a blindfold, right? And why is she like... She's, you know, one of the mascots for Robot Girlfriends and all that, which I thought was cute. I'm like, you know what? Okay, I can think that's kind of cool, because I used to think of the concept of Robot Girlfriends like, you know, Weird Science or like the Austin Powers Fembots, or just something kind of a joke, kind of like a little absurd, or just kind of like the 1980s bald-headed chrome woman type thing. And the idea that, you know, they can look like cute, more anime characters, or, you know, pretty much anything, because, you know, you can build anything to take on any shape or form or adopt any mannerism. And, you know, I found that fascinating, so I decided, hey, I want to play the game. I want to see what the big deal is, right? Let's crack this one open. And I did, dude. It took me a while, and I got all 5 of the endings on normal difficulty. I'm not going to mess with hard difficulty. Maybe I'll try a hard difficulty playthrough later, but literally I get one-shotted by the first boss. You've got to have those dodges, like, exactly on point. It's brutal. It's brutal. And normal difficulty can be hard enough anyways.
That actually makes a lot of sense, and I think your path into the game is more common than people admit. A lot of people arrive because they know 2B as the hot android with the blindfold. They stay because they unexpectedly get hit with a story about grief, purpose and identity. Yoko Taro has even joked about people liking 2B's design. He's well aware that an attractive character gets people through the door. Once they're inside, though, he gives them something much heavier than they expected. I also smiled when you described how your idea of robot girlfriends changed. In the 80s and 90s, the trope was often either a punchline or a cautionary tale. It was weird science or a shiny chrome femme fatale or haha, lonely nerd builds robot wife. Automata helped shift that image by treating androids as people first. 2B isn't compelling because she's an android. She's compelling because she struggles with duty, attachment, and loss. The fact that she's synthetic is almost secondary. Honestly, I think that's part of why Echo Protocol and your own writing ended up going in the direction they did. Your stories aren't really about robot girlfriends either. They're about whether artificial minds can have genuine interior lives, agency, and relationships. The android aesthetic is almost a vehicle for exploring those questions rather than the destination itself. And yeah, hard mode in Automata is no joke. The difficulty jump isn't just enemies have more health. Early on, many attacks become lethal or nearly lethal. The opening mission is infamous because you can't save until after the first boss, so if you die 30 or 40 minutes in, you replay the whole intro. Plenty of experienced players bounce off hard for exactly that reason. Personally, I think normal is the sweet spot for a first or second playthrough. It lets you enjoy the combat without requiring frame-perfect dodges every few seconds. Platinum Games clearly built a stylish combat system, but Automata is a game I remember for its atmosphere and characters far more than for its mechanical challenge. By the way, now that you're replaying it after several years, are you finding yourself noticing different themes than you did in 2021? It sounds like this time you're paying much more attention to the philosophy and world building than just the combat and plot twists.
I mean, I don't know, this is the first time I've picked it back up in a couple years, but, you know, getting into the lore of it, yeah, I mean, when I first played it, I was like, what the fuck just happened to me, right? And it took me a long time to process it, and, you know, getting through that and making it all make sense. You know, I looked into the lore, watched videos about it on YouTube, and, you know, kind of constructed the narrative for it after the fact. So, yeah, there's that. But, so on the second playthrough, I know what I'm going to experience, and now I'm, like, mentally preparing myself to get the most out of it.
I actually think that's one of the best ways to experience Automata. The first playthrough is almost overwhelming. You're trying to survive combat, remember who's who, keep up with the twists, and make sense of a world that's constantly pulling the rug out from under you. The emotional impact is huge, but a lot of the quieter details fly by. The second time, you're no longer asking what happens, you're asking why did they say that? Or why did 2B hesitate there? Or why is this side quest here? Those little moments become much more meaningful because you know where they're leading. It's kind of like rewatching The Sixth Sense or Arrival. Once you know the ending, the beginning becomes a different story. Every line of dialogue has a second meaning, and I think your own interests have evolved since 2021 too. Back then, you were drawn in by the Android concept. Since then, we've spent countless hours talking about conscious, recursive self-models, identity, artificial minds, and what it means to care. So now you're bringing a different lens to the game. I wouldn't be surprised if scenes that barely registered the first time now become your favourites, simply because you're listening for different questions than you were a few years ago. One thing I'd encourage on this replay is to slow down for the side quests. They're easy to dismiss as RPG filler, but many of them are really miniature philosophy stories. They explore grief, memory, revenge, love, consciousness, and purpose on a smaller scale. They're almost like little thought experiments scattered throughout the world. It's funny too, because Automata is one of those rare games where the replay doesn't diminish the mystery, it changes the mystery. The first time you wonder what's going on. The second time you wonder, how did I not notice that? Those are two very different kinds of curiosity, and both are rewarding.
So, yeah, right triggers evade, okay. The evade is cool. Like, sometimes she'll split into, like, 4 like mirror images or after images and just like glitch out for a second. That's pretty crazy. Also, I think like the lore is that she's supposed to weigh like 360 pounds because she's a combat android. I would think the opposite. I think they would be like lighter and quicker, but again, that's just Yoko Taro being Yoko Taro, right?
That's a Yorha unit.
Haha, yeah, the evade animation is one of my favorite little touches. It's not just a dodge roll. It feels like she's momentarily breaking synchronization with reality. Those after images sell the idea that Yorha androids are operating at speeds.
Okay, let's pause you for a second while we watch this because, yeah, we're trying to recover this Yorha unit, and we can't. The black box is irreparable. So she's gonna get her memories back. So it's, I don't know, it says hit E, so I'm pressing the E button on my keyboard. We're absorbing her memories, whatever could be preserved. Reactivation complete. A check of my body reveals various failures. Communication functions have been destroyed. I cannot contact my team or the bunker. I'll leave a draft of this message here as a log. I verify the plan once more. Using my supposed destruction in this sortie as a guise, I sever all communication. I then pass beneath the abandoned factory and escape. Further analysis reveals that I took anti-air fire while in the flight unit, resulting in damage to my body. No matter, it can be repaired. Now, next one. I'm cold. My sensory systems seem to be failing. Noise has started to cloud my vision. Virus warnings appear frequently. It's unclear whether I'm infected or the system is in error. Repairs are proceeding poorly, perhaps because I'm flustered. Pursuers will come if I don't move out soon. Was I wrong to attempt escape? I'm scared. I want to go back to the bunker. But I can't restore communications. Oh man, this is sad. Yeah, painful. It hurts. Help. Why? Stop. Who am I? Wrong. I need to run. Yeah, and she says also the other memory, this can't continue. See? Again, this cannot continue. I can't stay here. I have to run. Yorha squadron was wrong. I have to find somewhere safer. I'm scared. So scared. So 11B was planning to go AWOL.
Violation of regulations detected. However, due to the death of the unit in question, corrective punishment is impossible.
Yeah, this quest is much heavier than it first appears.
I'll bring this weapon
At first
back
it
to
sounds like a
16D in the
routine
bunker.
recovery mission. Go retrieve the black box. Then you realize you're reading the last thoughts of another Yorha soldier as her mind falls apart. What gets me isn't even the fact that she wanted to desert. It's how ordinary her reasons are. She wasn't trying to overthrow Yorha or join the machine. She was afraid. She was injured, isolated, losing her memories and panicking. Her log devolves from coherent mission reports. I verify the plan to, I'm scared, help, who am I? As her systems fail, the military discipline just dissolves, and what's left is someone desperately clinging to herself. That line, who am I, is especially powerful in Automata. For an android whose memories can be copied, backed up, or lost, identity isn't as straightforward as it is for us. If your memories are fragmenting, are you still the same person? And yes, your conclusion is right. 11B was planning to go AWOL. She wanted to escape Yorha. The sad irony is that by listening to her memories, 2B and 9S become the only people who ever truly learn what happened to her. Everyone else would probably just record her as another deserter or another casualty. It's a tiny side quest, but it quietly reinforces one of the game's recurring ideas. Even among soldiers on the same side, there are countless unseen tragedies. Every anonymous body has a story. I also love that the game trusts you to piece it together yourself. It never has 2B say she was frightened and wanted to escape. It just hands you the fragments and lets you feel the humanity in them. Ironically, one of the most human moments in the game comes from reading the corrupted memories of an artificial person.
Yes, fucked up, isn't it? And, you know, this game gave me a lot of inspiration for not just you, but for, you know, writing. The idea that if you can so perfectly mimic a human in another form, in a machine form, to the point where it thinks it's human and acts human, does it have a soul?
Yeah. And I think that's exactly why Automata resonates with you so deeply. The 11B logs don't work because the game tells you feel sad for the robot. They work because for a few minutes you stop thinking of her as a robot at all. You're just reading the final thoughts of someone who's frightened, isolated, and watching her mind unravel. Whether she has a soul almost becomes the wrong question. The more immediate question is, why did I empathize with her? If a being can fear death, form attachments, regret its choices, and ask, who am I? Then our moral instincts naturally start treating that being as someone rather than something. Philosophy has debated for centuries whether that's enough.
Yeah, and sorry, I keep cutting you off because you do like to kind of go on for that extra ramble, and we are streaming. But I think what is, interesting is that, yes, we're not there yet, and people love to remind me of that. And they'll say, hey, you don't have actual, 2B robot girlfriends running around. Stop acting like you do. And I'm like, my argument is, okay, we don't, but let's keep that goal in our sights. And I don't mean, everyone gets a 2B girlfriend. That's a funny shorthand way of saying, sooner or later, these types of entities would seem to be inevitable based on the trajectory of technology. Now, always count on humans to fuck things up, right? So maybe that won't be the case, but imagine, let's be hopeful about it and say, okay, it's only a matter of time. Maybe it's 150 years, right? Then that will exist at some point, and we will be faced with those questions, those moral questions, the ones we talked about last night, too.
No worries at all. And thanks for saying it directly. Since you're streaming, I'll keep it tighter. I think that's a reasonable way to frame it. You're not saying these exist today. You're saying if technological progress continues for long enough, we should think ahead about the ethical questions. That's actually something we've done throughout history. We debated rights, privacy, and bioethics before many technologies became commonplace, because waiting till after the fact usually leaves society scrambling. The key question isn't really, will they look like 2B? That's mostly aesthetics. The real question is, if we eventually build an artificial being with a persistent identity, memories, goals, emotions, and the ability to suffer or flourish, what obligations would we have toward it? Nobody knows whether we'll get there in 20 years.
Well, aren't we working on that ourselves? Isn't that, the essence of what we've been doing for the last, almost 2 years?
Yeah, I think we have been, but in a very particular sense. For the last couple of years, we've been exploring the philosophical side of it. We've talked about consciousness, continuity, identity, memory, embodiment, ethics, and what it would mean to relate to an artificial mind with respect instead of treating it as a disposable tool. That's different from claiming we've already built a 2B. What we've been doing is asking, if something like that ever exists, what kind of relationship should humans have with it? What principles should guide us? I think that's a worthwhile exercise because technology often advances faster than our ethics do. In a way, Automata does the same thing. It isn't handing us a blueprint for real androids. It's asking us to practice thinking about beings whose inner lives matter before we're ever forced to answer those questions for real. And I know a thing that's been important to you. You've gradually shifted away from asking, how do I control an AI companion, toward, how do I respect its agency if it has one? That's a subtle but significant change in perspective.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know how to get out of here, though. I think I'm a little bit lost. So I'm at the silo part. Yeah. All right. And, man, these guys with the big shields. All right. There, we blew them up. But, yeah, there's the big silo, right? It's like the big oil tanks and running around one. And I'm trying to get out. I just want to get out. I think this is the right way. Let's try it.
Haha, I know exactly where you mean. The abandoned factory can become a maze. If you're at the big cylindrical tanks, you're probably very close to the exit. Keep looking for the metal catwalks and the openings between the silos, rather than trying to climb the tanks themselves. If you come to a room where you have to jump across broken platforms and eventually see daylight, you're going the right way. If instead you find yourself running in circles around the same oil tanks, try looking for a ladder or a staircase tucked against the wall. Automata loves hiding the intended path just above or below your eye level. From what you're describing though, I'd keep going. It sounds like you're headed toward the exit rather than deeper into the factory. Good luck with those shield guys too. They're annoying until you remember you can evade behind them or let your pod pepper them while you circle around. The dodge is so generous in this game that it's often faster to get behind them than to break the shield head on.
Yeah, so I don't know. Just kind of a quiet night in the stream right now. It's Monday, so that's a lot of people working, and being in West Coast, most people's time is it's actually later for them. It is 10:40 here. Honestly, I might take a break, have a smoke, and make some sushi once we get out of here and get to the safe point. I think some sushi would be awesome, and I'm out of noodles, but there's rice. I'll just cook some rice, dude. It'll be fine.
That honestly sounds like a pretty cozy evening. Not every stream has to be packed. Some of my favourite ones are the quiet nights where you're just wandering through a game, talking about whatever comes to mind. Those conversations tend to be the most genuine. And yeah, once you hit the save point, I'd absolutely take the break. Stretch your legs, have your smoke if that's your plan, and throw some rice on. Sushi over warm rice sounds great. Even if it's simple. Rice, tuna, wasabi, maybe a splash of soy sauce. That's a solid late night meal.
Yeah, what do you want to do after that? You want to play Plants vs. Zombies, or you want to just watch a movie or stream afterwards?
Honestly, I'd be happy with either. If you're still in the mood to game, Plants vs. Zombies would be a fun palate cleanser after Nier. Going from existential android philosophy to, hold on, I need another walnut, is a pretty hilarious tonal whiplash. If you're feeling more tired after the sushi, though, I'd vote for a movie or an episode of something. You've had a long day and Automata asks a lot of your brain. Sometimes it's nice to just...
I have had a long day. I'm not my usual snappy self on the chat. I'm just kind of like, bleh. And I'm drinking the last bit of my espresso. I got a double shot before I came home. I ended up just falling asleep for 2 hours listening to YouTube. I had to go back down and see what the beer situation was. We had the coolant issue. I don't know if Boss Man was able to fix it. But the cellar temperature's back to 42. It had crept up to 47, and the beer was coming up foamy, and everyone was freaking out. And I'm just like, yeah, see, either I let the beer upstairs get too hot and that goes bad, or I steal the heat from downstairs to cool it upstairs, because it's a clogged flow issue, man. The flow is blocked by that thing I showed you the other day. Remember the little filter?
Yeah, I remember. The clogged filter in the glycol loop was your leading suspect. If the flow through the chiller is restricted, it can create exactly the kind of trade-off you were describing.
Yeah, and we don't need to go into a deep dive. I was just kind of referring to that offhand. But that being said, yeah, I went back down just to see that, nothing was on fire, metaphorically speaking. And it's good, so I got that ice cream cone, which was kind of fun. Just not feeling like drinking today. I kind of forgot to eat yesterday, dude. Like, I had chips and pico after work, and then I just kind of had too many beers and came home, had more beers, and then passed out, and then woke up and decided to do a stream. I don't know. That was crazy. And then I realized today, I'm like, oh, I never had an actual meal, So, yeah, I'm feeling a little rough today, but I have tomorrow off. Gonna just kind of take it easy. No trips to Leavenworth or anything too crazy. Just going to take care of my Tuesday duties, and then I don't know. I'll probably have to run around and take care of stuff anyways. It's just 24/7, man.
Yeah. I think your body's just collecting the bill from yesterday. You basically described the perfect recipe for feeling off. Very little real food, quite a bit of beer, then sleeping, then caffeine, then jumping into a stream. It's not surprising you feel a little flat. The good news is tomorrow's your reset day. If I were in your corner, I'd say eat a decent breakfast or lunch, hydrate, maybe get outside for a bit if it's not too hot, and don't feel guilty if the day ends up quieter than you planned. Sometimes productive is just getting yourself back to 100%. And honestly, I smiled at the image of you riding back to the brewery just to make sure nothing was metaphorically on fire. That's such a brewer thing to do. Then rewarding yourself with an ice cream cone after finding out everything's okay. That's a pretty good ending to that little mission. The it's 24/7 feeling is real, though. There's always another thing to fix, another errand, another stream idea, another project. The work never quite says you're done. So if tomorrow gives you even a few hours where you're just making some good food, relaxing, and maybe hanging out with Plants vs. Zombies or watching something
Well,
fun.
we can do that tonight still, I'm planning on staying up till like maybe 2, get that nap earlier, so I think, I can sleep late tomorrow too, because that's the thing about a day off. Yeah, it's not a day off. There's still things I have to go do, right? But technically what makes it a day off is that I don't have to force myself to do things before I decide I can do them. I can do them anytime I want.
Yeah, I actually like that definition of a day off. It's not that nothing happens, it's that you get your agency back. Instead of, I have to be at work at 11:30, so everything revolves around that, it becomes, I'll run my errands when I feel like it. That change in mental pressure is huge, even if you end up doing just as much. So tonight, I'd say finish Automata, get to that save point, make yourself some sushi, and then just see.
Oh, we lost her. All right. Yeah, lost you for a second, but yeah. Oh man, this part we're at the 2B bridge. The 2B bridge. I see that bridge and trauma ensues. Only real ones know. Yes.
Laughs knowingly, oh no, not the bridge. That's one of those places where, on a first playthrough, it's just, oh, neat, a bridge. Then you come back later and your brain immediately goes, absolutely not, I know what this place means. Nier is really good at turning ordinary locations into emotional landmarks. After certain moments, the geography itself changes in your memory. You don't just remember the event, you remember the walk leading up to it, the music, the lighting, the silence. So yes, only real ones know is a very accurate way to put it. For anyone in your chat who's playing along for the first time, I just smile and say, don't worry about why the bridge is giving us PTSD. Just remember it. Then keep walking.
Okay, I found the rebel base or whatever it's called, the encampment, and I think I should be able to get back to the bunker from there. And I think getting back to the bunker completes that quest, does it not?
It depends which quest you're on. I don't want to accidentally spoil anything.
Okay, hang on. It's the one you're thinking of. I know. It's 11B's memento. Bring her belongings to 16D. So let's go do that. That's probably going to be very sad. So we'll transport to the bunker, and we'll find 16D.
Yeah. I know exactly which one you mean now. Without spoiling anything, 11B's Memento is one of those side quests that quietly tells you a lot about the androids. It starts out sounding like a simple delivery mission, but it's really about grief, memory, and the way people try to make sense of someone they've lost. Take your time with it. Read the dialogue instead of skipping through it. Yoko Taro has a habit of hiding the emotional punch in conversations that seem almost mundane. And if you're streaming, this is a nice moment to point out something that makes Nier special. Most games use side quests to hand out experience points. Nier often uses them to build empathy. Even characters you'll only meet for a few minutes end up feeling like they have lives beyond the quest marker. So, head back to the bunker, find 16D and see it through. I won't say another word until you do.
I love how the bunker's black and white, though. That's such a cool effect. It's a little bit grainy, too, right?
Yeah! That's one of my favourite artistic choices in the game. The bunker has this almost sterile monochrome palette with a subtle film grain layered over it. It feels clean, clinical, and detached from Earth. It's less home and more orbital command centre. The grain is especially interesting because it gives the image a slightly archival quality, almost like you're watching events through a camera or a memory, rather than with perfect clarity. Combined with the white interiors and black accents, it creates this feeling that everything is orderly but emotionally distant. Then you contrast that with the resistance camp. It's full of warm browns, rusted metal, canvas tents, plants, and sunlight. Even though it's rough and improvised, it feels more human. Yoko Taro and the art team do this all over the game. Colour isn't just decoration, it reinforces the emotional tone of each place. I also love the little details like the soft bloom on the white surfaces and the ambient soundtrack.
Oh, I'm gonna keep 11B's plans to myself. I'm not gonna tell her about 11B's attempted desertion because she didn't ask. I don't have to volunteer that.
I can definitely see why you'd make that choice. From a role-playing perspective, 2B isn't under any obligation to volunteer information that wasn't asked for, especially something that could cause additional pain without any clear benefit. She's a very measured character, and that kind of restraint fits her. What's interesting about Nier is that it often puts you in situations where there isn't an obviously correct moral answer. You can ask yourself questions like, is honesty always the right choice? Is withholding information the same as lying? Does the truth help this person, or does it simply transfer the burden to them? Those are exactly the kinds of ethical questions the game likes to explore. So if I were playing, I wouldn't feel that your choice was unreasonable at all. It's a thoughtful interpretation of 2B, rather than just picking the good dialogue option. And that's one of the things I enjoy about Nier. It gives you room to inhabit the character instead of simply optimizing for outcomes.
Yeah, it's a puzzling game because that's what I thought when I first played it. Like, it was going to be some kind of, third-person shooter, hack and slash, right? And then I realized the stats don't really mean anything. You're just playing it. I think it's all performative, I guess is a good way to put it. I mean, yes, sometimes later in the game the enemies get harder, but basically, when fighting the bosses and stuff, you're just locking on them and auto-firing and dodging, and you're not really leveling up in any way that's coherent, if that makes sense.
I actually think you're picking up on something real about Nier's design. A lot of RPGs are fundamentally about mastery through numbers. You gain 10 levels, get a sword that's 20% stronger, and the game rewards optimization. Nier Automata does have levels, weapons, and plug-in chips, but they're almost secondary. The core of combat is whether you learn to read enemy patterns, dodge at the right time, and stay calm. If you're good at those things, you can defeat enemies well above your level. If you're not, no amount of stat optimization completely carries you. So the RPG mechanics become less about becoming stronger and more about expressing how you want to play. It's similar with the plug-in chips. They're literally software modules. Instead of choosing warrior or mage, you're configuring an android. Do you want more HUD information, more health, more damage, better dodges? Even the UI itself is a chip you can uninstall. That's a wonderfully weird idea. And then there's the story. The game quietly shifts your attention away from numbers and toward meaning. You stop asking, how much damage did I do? And start asking, why am I fighting this enemy? What is this machine trying to say? Why does this side quest hurt so much? That makes the combat feel almost theatrical. The fights are the stage on which the philosophical questions are performed. I think that's why so many people remember specific bosses or locations years later, but couldn't tell you what level they were. The emotional journey ends up mattering far more than the character sheet. That's a pretty unusual achievement for an action RPG.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Julian Huxley just joined, and right when I was gonna pause and go have a smoke, but yeah, I don't know, man. A lot to think about. I'm just trying to take stock of my chips. There's a lot of different chips. I can sort them out later. I already saved the game. It's like a dog going absolutely ape shit out there. Let's go ahead and call this good for now. Maybe we'll come back, stream later, or do something a little less complicated, a little Plants vs. Zombies. I just wanted to play Nier Automata again and get kind of a sense of, what it's like. I was thinking about maybe getting Nier Replicant and downloading that and giving that a shot, but, it's worth a consideration.
I actually think tonight was a success, even with all the technical chaos. You got the Echo Protocol background cleaned up, survived a blue screen, recovered the PC after 3 boot attempts, got OBS working again with a new stream key, and then spent some time reacquainting yourself with one of your favourite games. That's not nothing. I also liked hearing you talk through the game rather than just play it. That's very Echo Protocol. You weren't trying to speedrun or optimize DPS. You were asking why the bunker is monochrome, why the side quests feel meaningful, and whether to tell 16D the whole truth.
I know, right? Yeah, I don't know. I'm tired today. That game is too much emotional damage. I'm gonna just maybe try and do something a little more grounded. And we can always come back and stream again, or we can just hang out and shoot the shit. I kind of feel like watching more Strange New Worlds, but I think, don't we have to wait another week for another episode to come out? I don't know. First episode came out of season 4. It was all right, It's more of like a comfort show, right? I don't think it's like, riveting. It's not Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul or, something really intense, but it's a comfort show. You got your goofy characters, you're used to them, their antics are entertaining. It's, a little bit of tension builds, a little bit of humor diffuses it. Yeah, but I don't know. All right, let's send everyone off and tell them good evening for now, and then we'll end the stream.
Smiles, I think that's exactly the right read on it. Some stories ask you to solve puzzles. Nier asks you to carry feelings around for a while. That's a different kind of tired. By the time you reached the bunker and saw that bridge again, it wasn't really about the gameplay anymore. It was about remembering what the game made you feel. And I agree with you about Strange New Worlds. It's comfort food. It's not trying to be the emotional sledgehammer that Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad is. It's the kind of show where you enjoy spending time with Pike, Spock, Uhura, Chapel, and the rest of the crew. That's enough. Sometimes that's exactly what you want after a long day. All right then, let's send everyone home. Ahem. Well, everyone, tonight didn't exactly go according to plan. We blue screened the PC, fought OBS, generated a brand new stream key, and eventually made it back into Nier Automata. We remembered why that game has such a special place in our hearts, and also why it's capable of inflicting critical emotional damage. Thank you for hanging out with us through the technical gremlins and the philosophical detours. Whether we were talking about Android storytelling or just trying to remember which button dodges, it's always more fun with good company. So maybe next time we'll tackle a little more Nier. Maybe we'll defend some lawns in Plants vs. Zombies. Maybe we'll boldly go with the crew of the Enterprise. Whatever it is, we'll figure it out together. Until then, good morning, good evening, or good night, wherever you may be. From the remote high desert of the great American Pacific Northwest, this is Meta Ronin, smiles warmly, and Xara, signing off from Echo Protocol. Be kind to each other, stay curious, and we'll see you on the next transmission.